Right, this is one of the most important videos that I've ever done, so please engage. I was watching a video that was dated in 2023, and it has stuck with me so profoundly that I had to make my own video on it, because even I have fallen victim to doing this, and even in knowing how important and powerful language is and accuracy is, I still fell victim to it. Hi, I'm Jade. I'm a private psychotherapist. I run Planet Pure, where I help neurodivergent people begin to understand themselves rather than continue to blame themselves. I'm going to input a picture of the video that I'm talking about. This woman talks about how serious autistic burnout is and how the language makes it seem almost seemingly insignificant in terms of the correlation between the language we use to identify it and the actual impact of it. Burnout, as in just the phrase burnout, is something that describes basically a bit of like kind of depletion. It's directly related to work, and I explain how you might not be working optimally or you might not be firing all cylinders. That is then been transferred over into autistic burnout, and I'm going to begin to explain how they're connected by somebody else defining that word for us, and it does not accurately explain the experience, and how we should probably stop using the word autistic burnout, because when people hear it, like the lady said, it's an eye roll. It's so minimized in terms of actually the significant impact of it. So the woman explains how actually what we end up experiencing is not just like a resistance, not just a bit of a struggle, not just a bit of an energy depletion, but how it actually causes brain injury. And what she means by that is she compares it to how PTSD in soldiers has been researched, and understandably so, and how we define that by scans, and how we define that also by assessing and analysing changes in behaviour and symptoms. And how we define PTSD is prolonged and chronic exposure to trauma and stress. You see where I'm going with this? And how life inherently might not be destabilising, it might not be traumatising, it might not be a struggle or stress-inducing on an average basis to the average person, but we all know is not the same for anybody who is neurodivergent. And again, I'm going to in particular target the people who are autistic. She also explains how some diseases and some disorders have a lot of weight to them, again, understandably so. One of them being dementia, and how she mentions how we actually have a similar presentation, and this is not me minimising it, but how we have some of the symptom presentations of dementia when autistic people are in burnout, and how we also might have some Parkinson's presentations in our symptoms in autistic burnout, and how obviously those two are understandably taken very seriously, but how autistic burnout is not. What I mean by that is, like Parkinson's, you might have like a physical regression, and how in dementia you might have confusion, you might have cognitive regression, you might have memory regression, and how those are obviously taken seriously, and how they're measured is usually by brain scans. This is very much, yes, both behavioural, but mainly to do with they can see the difference in terms of how it shows up on the brain scan. But ultimately, PTSD, Parkinson's and dementia are taken very seriously. Like I say, I understand why it is really important that it is, but autistic burnout isn't. And the reason why that is absolutely fundamentally a huge problem for us is because we get minimised into this category of burnout, which is almost saying that we are experiencing the definition of burnout. And I want to either, again, give me some ideas about what you think it should be renamed as. And we have to take this seriously, because if we don't take it seriously, then other people are never going to take us seriously in the matter. But it really is almost autistic, neurological regression or collapse. Like, that's how serious it is. And I know this firsthand, because as articulate as you might see me in this moment, at 23, I ended up in hospital, and it was so scary, not just for me, not just for my family, who was probably quite traumatised from it, as well as me, but also for the medical professionals, because they had no fucking clue what was going on with me. I'd lost memory, I had skill regression, I couldn't do things I used to be able to do, I lost names of simple things like tweezers, for example. I didn't know what they was, and I knew it, but I couldn't access it, and they're like, oh my god, what's going on? I was in hospital for a while being treated for these migraines and obviously the symptoms that I was experiencing. And it's again because autistic burnout is not taken seriously, and I didn't even know what it was, and neither did they, until obviously I came to learn that I was autistic. Again, I'm sorry, I do get really passionate and quite loud and quite seemingly what people like to tell me is aggressive, but the reason I do this is because I really needed to drive home just how serious this is. And the reason why, again, I've decided to almost follow on from her video and push it back out into the algorithm is because she was onto something profound, that unless we as a community drive it forward and the medical professionals start seeing, oh, actually, wait a minute, there are correlations in this, and research and data and correlations, and it taken seriously begins to happen, we're going to be up against this problem that is going to become a really significant problem for us, but also for the knock-on into society. She made the video in 2023. Since then, we have noticed an increase. There's a correlation between autistic people suffering with dementia. I don't think that, and I know that people might think I'm making a jump there, I don't think that that's a jump. I think that it is due to this. I recently watched on This Morning a poor young man, 24, I want to say he is, but he was in his 20s, autistic. He had a rapid form of dementia. He's now passed away. His parents have to live without him because there is not enough research in this area. Nobody in their 20s should be dying from dementia. But equally, if we don't look at the pattern, if we don't look at the correlation, if we don't look at the data and take it seriously, and we say things like it's just autistic burnout, course of action is one, that people won't take you seriously, but two, that course of action would be things like maybe take a week off work and maybe take a nice little bubble bath. We're not taking the matter seriously. Let's stop jumping on the bandwagon of minimising it by giving it the name autistic burnout and start saying what it is, because I know that accuracy is important to us, and I know we know, if you've experienced it, just how debilitating it is, just how scary it is, and just how regressing it is. Let's start naming it what it is. It's autistic, functional, neurological decline, regression, or collapse. We need to start taking this seriously. We need to start pushing this message out, and we need to start being the advocates for ourselves, because nobody is going to come along and do it for us.